Welcome to Clay's Cortex.
Hey guys, welcome to episode number 13 of Clay's Cortex. Got a guest today. We got Josh Fitch over here. We're going to be talking about essentially the topic of today's podcast is we're going to be going over, the question on Instagram was, why do I get hurt? And we're kind of prefacing that towards, why does my son or daughter keep getting hurt when playing sports and so forth? And that's what we're going to kind of dive into. This is almost like part 2 from episode number 12, where it's like, do I play multiple sports or specialize, right? And I kind of dove into that, and that's preceding or kind of leading up into this episode. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, go to Clay's Cortex, just type it on in. You'll see a brain that I drew. You can also watch us on YouTube. You can listen to it on Podbean and so forth. But we're going to get into this. But let me talk about Josh a little bit. So this is Josh Fitch. We met, I feel like I met you, I want to say when you were in high school, though.
I was in high school. You weren't too far out of high school.
Yeah, it was just out of the
Yeah, this guy was doing hitting and infield, and I don't even think you were doing strength work at that point.
Yet. No.
It's been so cool to see your journey, and it's crazy how long I've known you.
I appreciate. Yeah, dude. Josh is. I remember when I first saw you or met you because it was through Q, because Q came in for speed work.
Right.
And he was like, "Oh, that's my homie Josh over there."
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, Mally Terrace, hey," So, but I was like, "Okay," and you were hitting and stuff, and I was like, "Okay," but then you came in after your elbow surgery.
Yeah, I came in after I had Tommy John surgery the summer after my senior year of high school. You were working over at Bo's place.
Yeah, Bo's, man.
Basically, we started training. It was 2 weeks after my surgery, I think, is when we started. And
it was that early, wasn't it?
It was really early.
Man.
Yeah, and been working with you on the strength side of things ever since then. So
yeah. And what's cool about Josh is just knowing Josh, his journey through that and progressing through his baseball career and stuff. It's been really cool to see him adapt and grow. Dude's really smart. It's the conversations we have and how he challenges me and my thought process is unbelievable. And that's what I thought was really cool. I was like, I just kind of off the cuff was like, dude, do you want to be on one and talk about this? And he was like, dude, I'm down. I was like, let's do it. I was like, this is pretty cool. So Josh is going to be helping us with some team stuff. We're going to do training here. He lives here too. He also does pitching and stuff at Driveline.
That's correct.
Great facility, great business. They're doing some cool stuff there. Check them out, right? And I'll put it in the show notes. But yeah, they're doing some, if you're serious about, baseball and getting things going, that's definitely a place to go, right? And for me, when Josh started going there and he would tell me, man, this place is awesome, I was like, it carried some weight with me, which if I go back and do a plug, the Reputation and Character Plus Character podcast talks about that. So when I say that about Josh, when he says that to me, I'm like, man, that just sticks out to me. So but anyways, I'm going to be quiet a little bit. I'm going to let Josh talk about himself and kind of his journey, what he does, and then we'll kind of get into the podcast.
Yeah, so like Kurt said, I met him back when I was in high school, and you were working over at Rio, and I played high school ball. I played in college at a couple places, 3 places actually. I played at Shoreline Community College, played over at Youngstown State, which is a small D1 over in Ohio, and then after that came back home, transferred and played at UW for a couple years, and dealt with a lot of injuries, mainly at UW, and decided that it was time to leave there and finish out my degree and get that done. And then once I left the UW baseball program, like Kurt said, started training over at Driveline as a free agent, and I'm working towards hopefully getting signed as a free agent here with either an indie ball team or an affiliate baseball team. So that's where I'm at. I've known Curtis, trained with him for a while, and I'm just starting to journey into actually working with him on the training side of things. And so that's real exciting, just to be able to see what he's done for me, and then to be able to give back in that way to kids who are younger than me and kids who are in the same spot, honestly, that I was at that age.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm at, and it's been so cool to just journey along with a guy like Curtis and see him as a mentor really over the past 8-10 years or something like that.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, he's my friend, man. It's been cool. Sorry, I got a little choked up there. It's just really cool just to see this journey, and this is my heart and why I kind of got into this. And I think that's why this topic is so heavy to some aspect for me, right? The amount of injuries that kids get is astronomical, right? And if I go back to the last podcast, I dove into talking about, one sport specialization at a very young age, right? I'm not saying later on and so forth, but at a very young age versus playing multiple sports throughout the year and the benefit of playing multiple sports throughout the year. But we're going to dive into what I believe is a massive deterrent or helper to prevent those injuries, right? So the topic of this podcast is, why do I get hurt? I didn't want to just single it out towards, just youth athletes, but also people. Like when people go to exercise or when they go to do activity, hike, run, play sports, weekend warriors, they're getting hurt.
Right.
And it's kind of like, well, how do we help them prevent those things? Well, the biggest thing that him and I were talking about, there's not an adequate amount of strength, right?
Yeah.
So strength training is crucial. What is your perspective on that? Like, how important is strength training? And
it's incredibly important. I mean, the biggest, shortest answer and reason behind why people get hurt is that the forces that their bodies are dealing with, whether it's an athlete on the baseball field or the football field, or just someone in the general population dealing with their everyday life, the biggest reason they get hurt is because the forces they're dealing with are stronger than what their body is able to withstand.
No doubt.
And so, that's a simple answer with a ton of nuance and gray area within that. But I mean, as somebody who has dealt with a ton of injuries and even surgeries over the years, I've been able to see that firsthand.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's cool. So absolute strength is crucial, right?
Yeah.
So when it comes to working with athletes, if they're playing a sport, the one sport continuously, or even if they're playing multiple sports, as they're maturing and growing, teaching them how to use their bodies in a multitude of ways is going to be crucial, and strength training can do that. Loading the body from different angles, whatever it is, forces, like he talked about that. So if we dive into that a little bit, the capacity that their body or muscles can handle the stress that's being put onto it is low, right? From a strength standpoint, and if we can increase that with strength or just make them more dynamic, that's going to be a huge thing too, right? So how much has strength training impacted you and helped with your journey through with driveline, throwing again, you've been throwing the whole time, but throwing and kind of mitigating some of those things, how's that helped you?
I mean, before I really worked with Curtis at all, I mean, my strength was pretty low. I did a lot of running and body weight work, and my strength levels were really low. And to be honest with you, as I got through high school, started to work a little bit more in the weight room and got into the weight room, especially as I got into college and after working with Curtis. And it's, as somebody who is not built with a body that is naturally larger, I mean, I'm 5'11" and naturally probably 170 pounds.
Okay.
I've really had to work hard in the weight room to develop a body that can withstand the repetitive forces that a sport like baseball brings upon you.
Right.
I mean, it's a repetitive sport in terms of whether you're swinging or pitching or anything, you're doing the same type of rotational movement over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And if your body cannot withstand those forces, it's going to break down if you don't have the strength behind it.
Sure.
And so just building a base level of strength with more general strength exercises was critical, and then getting into more sport-specific work to be able to withstand what baseball brings specifically to my body has been critical.
Yeah, man. And that's pretty cool, man. I mean, just if you look at his journey, I mean, Josh is one of the most disciplined people I've ever met, right? So if you suggest something, and I guess the great thing about working with him and just how training you day to day versus now you're coming and doing programs, you're giving input.
Right.
We did a really cool phase 2 assessment yesterday, and it kind of uncovered something. So now, last night I was up super late, almost like Kanye working on his album, you know what I'm saying? Right. Anyways, working on that, thinking through that, and okay, let's dive. How do I add that into his programming, right? To where he's like, okay, I get why we're doing this, to apply this, right? And that's what's been really cool. And I lost my train of thought. Anywho, but getting into that, seeing his journey progress over time, to see him essentially absorb the information, be consistent, because he's going to work hard, that's going to make a huge difference with his consistency. Now, if you're consistent with your strength training, it's going to make a massive difference. You've got to be somewhat consistent. Like here, when kids first come in, I'll say, let's go 1 day a week. Right? Let's just start with 1 day a week, because if we can get you consistent with that, and I'll give them a little bit of homework, they can learn how to, one, get stronger. They're getting better inputs into their body consistently, so that they can be stronger on the field, the court, whatever it is they do. Yeah. And I think that what's interesting is that, like he said it, like baseball, rotational, repetitive, over and over again. These overuse injuries are coming up and up over and over again. I also think that recovery is a massive part of that.
Totally.
What's your perspective on, recovery? Like I know we're talking about building strength and how exercise can help with that to prevent and mitigate injuries, but what about the recovery side? How's that important to you? What are some things that you do to maybe monitor your recovery?
Totally. I mean, one of the common misconceptions when it comes to training is that a lot of people feel like you get stronger while you're in the weight room, right? And the reality is that you're actually breaking down your body while you're in the weight room or training or throwing or hitting or whatever that is. And so the time that you spend out of the gym is really where you're getting stronger. And so if you think that, you train for an hour a day, 2 hours a day,
right,
you're looking at 20, 22, 23 hours where you're out of the gym. I mean, the majority of the time that we spend as athletes or even non-athletes is recovering outside the gym. And so if you take what you do in the gym and then undo it to a certain extent outside of the gym based on poor sleeping habits or poor nutritional habits, you're really limiting the amount of growth that you can have in your strength. And so focusing on those hours where we're outside the gym is going to make the biggest difference, honestly, when it comes to maximizing what you've done in the weight room. And so for me, that's been a slow process in realizing that. And I've tried just about everything over the years to maximize recovery, and I'm still on that journey. So some things that I tried I no longer use, and I am far from somebody who has this down. But I've made an effort to focus on my sleep, and one of the main ways that I focus on my sleep is I use a sleep tracking device called Whoop, which is a wristband that I know Curtis has used at time in the past, which gives me really granular data about my sleep and the amount of hours that not just I'm spending asleep, but in certain different sleep stages, so slow wave sleep and that. And so what I can look at after I wake up is, what is my preparedness for the day training wise, and then adapt based on that. And so that is one way that I can monitor my sleep. Clearly nutrition is something that is a big deal.
Yeah, for sure.
What you're feeding your body is going to directly impact not just what you're able to do inside the gym and intensity-wise, but then how you're able to recover outside the gym during those hours. And so I've messed with a lot of stuff over the years. Nutritionally, found some stuff that works and stuff that doesn't work. And so that's been a constant journey and one that I'm continuing to go on. I've tried various supplements over the years. I would say that supplements are not something that you want to focus on primarily for recovery. The word supplement itself insinuates that it's a supplement to what you're already doing, the groundwork, foundational stuff. So, if you don't have your sleep locked in, if you don't have your nutrition in a place where it should be, then supplements really shouldn't be something that you should even be considering. So
you guys hear that?
Yeah. So make sure you're getting those, getting those 8 hours of sleep plus, which I realize is hard. I'm a college student. I get that, right?
No doubt.
Yeah, I'm not saying this from a place like I got to figure it out, and Curtis knows this. I'll shoot him texts at 1 a.m. But so I'm speaking to myself as much. But getting that sleep in a place where it's really benefiting you, getting that nutrition in a place, understanding what type of strain you're taking on in your body in the gym and then outside the gym. If you're working out in the gym and then you're going to play 3 hours of pickup basketball outside the gym, there's a time and a place for that. But if you're doing that every day and feeling like that's not having an impact on your recovery, then it totally is. So just taking that approach where you understand not just what you're doing inside the weight room, but then the 22 or 23 hours each day where you're not in the weight room, understanding that that's the biggest component when it comes to maximizing your recovery.
Yeah, man, it's huge. I think that the first time I had that kind of made clear to me was I went to RTS. Tom Purvis does that, and he talked about what you're eating. He talked about that, but he did it in a little more simpler terms with just to kind of, he was the class about exercise, right? Physics based training, how to build an exercise for somebody. But he talked about how you guys realize that if somebody comes and sees you 3 times a week per se, right, that's 3 hours, and if you subtract every night the amount of hours they get for sleep, and he gave an estimate of 8 hours a night. And he said if you look at the amount of time that you as a trainer can make an impact on somebody with dramatically changing their physique or whatever it is, it's 0.03% or something like that of time, and the bigger chunk is outside of the gym. Totally. And so we hear that quote, like you said on Instagram, abs are made in the kitchen, stuff like that. But it's for real. Your recovery and sleep is huge, along with the nutrition, right? If you're not hydrating, all that kind of stuff. So that's probably another facet of strength's a big component, right? You've got to be strong. That will help mitigate injury to some aspect. But what was really cool that I heard you say is I monitor my sleep to know that when I get up, I'm going to vary my workout for that day.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're a biological being.
I am. Yeah.
Right? So adapting that way, right? Did you not sleep well? Did you not eat well? Did you eat too close to bed, which impacted your sleep? Did you not hydrate throughout the day? All these different things. So strength is crucial, but so is sleep, right? So that's a two-pronged approach. Another thing I think is that I've seen from kids getting hurt is they have let's just subtract strength's a part of it, nutrition's a part, but they have a lack of control of how to
Totally.
use their body,
Yeah.
right? How have you seen that? How have you seen that? Because you've done some hitting lessons, you help with baseball stuff. How have you seen that impact kids,
Totally, especially you see younger kids if they go through a large growth spurt.
Yes.
And I mean, some of that's unavoidable as far as if you grow a ton in a short period of time, you're gonna have to deal with some of that uncoordination that's natural. And so really getting a foundation of strength to minimize some of the potential for injury that you might be having during that growth spurt is massive. It's really hard to control and learn to control your body when you're going at 100% intent for a swing or for a throw.
Yeah.
And so being able to learn and ingrain those movement patterns in the weight room can be critical to then affecting your performance on the field. And so myself personally, I mean, I've dealt with that as a trainer.
Yeah.
I haven't dealt with that as much personally. Having not really gone through a really large growth spurt, at least in high school.
Hear you.
I went through more of a larger growth spurt early on in college, but understanding how to use my body has been one of the biggest things that has transformed my training and really has affected then in turn my performance on the baseball field. And it's not just about controlling my body, but learning how to control my body has then given me an awareness of where my body is in space.
In space.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
I like that you said that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if somebody has no awareness of where their body is in space, it makes it really hard to make, for example, mechanical changes on the baseball field or pitching or really any sport. If you don't understand where your arm or where your leg is during a movement, having a trainer then cue you where to move your body in a certain way is not going to click and is not going to make sense to you as an athlete. And so I've had to learn that. I'm still learning that. I mean, trying to maximize my intent and the control of my body during movements in the weight room has been critical for me, learning where my body's at. And I guarantee that it will have an effect on how you feel, not just in the weight room, but then minimizing the potential for injury as far as understanding, where am I feeling this in a movement or a swing, or, how is this going to affect me based on my recovery? There's all kinds of things that can come downstream from that understanding of your body.
I love it. Yeah, I thought that was cool that you just said the understanding of your body in space, right?
Yeah.
So I have kids that come in, they can't skip. They can't, high knees, everybody does high knees, but what happens is with some of these movements that teams do or coaches do is kids start to go through the motions. And he said something that I covered in a podcast earlier, but intent, right? I think that word really started hitting me hard when you would say, hey, today's a high intent day at Driveline, or it's a pull down day, right? And I'm like, oh, intent, it's crucial, right? So that started to get me on this journey of, okay, I understand being intentional, but how important that is. When you're doing a lunge, when I'm having a kid do a skip, what are the pieces to get them to be intentional with every single one, not just go 10 yards. Right. That's a hard thing to do because as a trainer, strength coach, exercise professional, whatever you want to call yourself, to be that focused with that person or even in a group setting of like, hey, I need you to do this like this.
Right.
I need you to lock in mentally like this. It's crucial, and it carries over to the field. It carries over to, man, when I'm warming up before a game, something feels off, right? Yeah. Being able to be like, oh, like as Matt Bernier, one of the guys that's a mentor of mine, he said, is the check engine light on? Right? Is your body's check engine light on? And a lot of times we tend to kind of push past that when we're driving the car, but he says with your body, be mindful of that. And you say, yeah, I'm not feeling so good today. The sleep aspect, I wake up not feeling so good. I think that's really cool because to help prevent injuries, the better you can control your body, the more you're going to be able to adapt to those forces that are being put on your body from the ground, from the ball, from swinging, from hitting a volleyball, from jumping and landing back on the court. Your body understanding, oh, I'm on this type of surface. Like right now we're sitting on the turf side and how much different that feels versus the firm side, because he never deadlifts, that I've seen in here, off of the turf, right? And that is because it's not a very firm surface to push through, right? So if those make differences. So the better your body can operate in space and in its external environment, wherever you play your sport or live, sit in a chair at work, whatever it is, the more you're going to mitigate or prevent those injuries, right? And I think this was interesting. So I'm not going to ask that question. I was going to ask out of those three, which is the most important. But I mean, I think it's on a continuum.
Totally.
Right? Like sleep, I think, is a constant, right? So sleep, nutrition, that's a constant. But the amount of strength you do versus, let's just say, skill acquisition or understanding where your body's in space, you may focus on one more or the other depending on your sports season.
100%.
Like, how do you look at that?
Yeah, I mean, I look at my training in phases, and even Curtis does when he looks at programming for me, and then when I'm at Driveline, it's the same way. So if I'm in a phase throwing wise where the intent is really high, right? I'm working on developing velocity, I'm throwing a ton, there's a ton of volume, we may back off in the weight room a little bit, especially on strength work or stuff that's really going to tax my central nervous system. And then likewise, if we're going through a phase where we're really trying to develop strength in the weight room, we may back off a little bit on the throwing side of things. And so not trying to develop everything at once is also going to help when it comes to your performance on the baseball field and minimizing the risk for injury. Understanding what part of the season you're in, especially as you get older and you start to focus on a singular sport,
right.
it becomes such a big aspect of understanding where you are in the year, where you are in relation to your season, and then programming around that schedule.
Right.
And so, I mean, you look at, I'm surrounded by college and professional athletes on a daily basis over at Driveline, and seeing how intentional they are and the trainers are there, understanding, hey, we're in this week and you have so many weeks until your season. And so we're going to structure your throwing and your weight room work and your nutrition and your sleep in this way to maximize not just today, but we're really looking at preparing you for 8 weeks from now, 10 weeks from now, spring training, that kind of thing. And so even as a youth athlete who's playing a ton of different sports, understanding where you're at, and maybe you're in a season where you're looking at playing a sport like basketball and you're backing off a little bit from baseball. Using those different seasons to then develop some different movement patterns and get yourself out of the rut of swinging every day or throwing every day, and really maximizing the variation that you're experiencing in your daily movement can be critical in minimizing the risk for injury, understanding your body better, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, man, I think that's pretty cool, right? Like if you think about that, being mindful of those things and understanding where you are and how things can ebb and flow. It's a continuum, right? And I think I've said that in a couple other podcasts, and we're seeing that, right? Like I gave the analogy or the example of success. It's not a linear path. It's an ebb and flow. Same thing with training. Same thing with your year and what your year looks like. Like if you play football in the fall, right? I got a couple kids who play football in the fall, baseball in the spring. The big window I have for them to make some adequate changes is like winter. Right?
Yeah.
So like that winter time is like, let's stop doing as much skill acquisition, movement stuff, and let's really focus on the strengthening to kind of get you locked in for baseball. Because baseball, I mean, dude, like I think I talked about in the podcast, the last one, like I played, growing up, I played soccer and I kind of gave myself my mom didn't want me to get hurt, so I could play football, but played soccer, then basketball, then baseball, and I'd say baseball is the longest season because in Little League, per se, we'd have season, right? And it wasn't like a crazy amount of games, and then we'd have all-stars.
Yes.
Right? Or say it was pony ball, or what you'd start and you'd have a longer season. So baseball is a pretty long season. So figuring out with them during the year, when can we focus on strength? And then as they get closer to season, should we focus more on skill acquisition? Probably. Yeah. Or movement-based type stuff that's related to that. And then also asking them, hey, what is your schedule, right? Like it's cool. Like Josh will tell me, hey, this is what we're going to be doing at pitching, at Driveline. We're going to transition towards this, and he'll give me input, right? We're to that point in that relationship where he can be like, hey, can we, hey, can I actually add in some more squats? Hey, let's back off right now because I'm about to go high throwing. But the thing is being in tune with that. And the hard part is if you're going to be a youth, or if you have a youths, if you've got a kid, a son or daughter that plays sports, understanding, okay, let's look, and it's hard as a parent, man. Like I got a 2-year-old, I get that. Like every day's different with light, I get that. But if you can have a structured schedule to understand, okay, little Johnny's got, flag football in the fall, then he's got basketball, and he's doing that 2 days a week. If we can find a day for him to train, or let's just go outside as a family and go play. Yeah. Right? Like I grew up playing outside. I'm assuming you did too. Like you go play outside, wiffle ball, climb trees, I don't know, ride bikes, whatever. Kids don't do that as much now, and that's what I think is impacting some of the athletic development. Yeah. And the kids that you're seeing elite level, I'm believing now, like this is just my bias or perspective, is you look at some of these, like Mike Trout, for example, man, he grew up in a small town. He's probably playing outside more so versus being on technology. Probably. Right? And so him using his body in space made him more dynamic. And he's a great athlete. Like, it's unbelievable what he can do. And he's been the best player based off stats. Every year he's been in the league compared to anybody. Not like now, I'm talking about ever, right? So the better you can do those things. So as a family, go outside and play. Go for a walk. Go to the park. As a parent, play some games, right? And if I switch this, and we didn't cover this as much, but if I switch this as a parent, you being stronger and controlling your body, there's that whole use it or lose it thing.
Yeah.
You don't use it, you're going to lose it, right? The nervous system, and this might be a little deep, but the nervous system does this thing called pruning, right? So like if you do gardening, as you start to, like, bushes die, you trim it off and so forth because we don't use it anymore. Our nervous system does the same thing because our main goal is humans, or with our body, is to stay alive.
Yeah.
So it doesn't want to waste energy doing things that it's not going to technically do all the time. Right? So I encourage you, parents, go out and play with your kids. Go do stuff. Get outside. And I know you're tired from work. Like, I get that. Like, I'm right there with you. But go play with them. Go skip. Go try something new. Go rock climbing. I mean obviously, like, not like have a harness, you know. Have a harness, you know.
I mean, but if you do, go for it.
Yeah, if you want to. If you want to free climb, you know, what's that movie called?
Free solo.
If you want a free solo, do it,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, so go mix those things up with your kids because it's going to help their bodies develop structurally and control-wise, right? So I think hopefully that helps. So if I recap the podcast to some aspect, we're going into strength's crucial to prevent injuries. Crucial. Sleep and recovery is the other one, right?
Yeah.
Getting sleep. Like Eric Cressy said, I said in the last podcast, said, sleep better and recover better than your peers. And it was a 14-year-old that wanted to pitch asking these questions. And he was like, sleep and recover better than your peers, which is huge, right? And then the last one he said, and that was stay athletic, right? Which is what we're talking about, skill acquisition, or operating your body better in space. Working on rhythm. Go take a dance class. I don't know. Go dance in your house. Like, do a family dance night. I don't know. So those three things are going to be crucial to prevent injury for youth athletes, along with, you know, that's, again, not specializing them too young. So hopefully, that was a good podcast, man. There was a lot of back and forth. Josh gave great content, great information. So thanks for coming on, dude. This was fun. We'll have to do this again.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah, man. So hopefully, you guys enjoyed the podcast. This is episode number 13. It is Why Do I Get Hurt? Or subtitle, Why Does My Kid Keep Getting Hurt While Playing Sports and so forth. But you can watch this on YouTube, which if you just type in Clay's Cortex, you'll see a brain that I drew. That's that one. Every episode's up on there. If you don't want to watch it, you want to listen, you're on the go. You can listen to it on iTunes or on Podbean. So, thanks for listening. This is Curtis and Josh signing out. Have a wonderful weekend. Well, yeah, it's weekend for us. All right, y'all. Have a good one.
Catch you later.